After our video on European countries with the most illegal immigrants, this was the most difficult video for us to make. This is because different European governments use different methods to count the homeless, and some don't count them at all. After carefully analyzing documents from the governments of all European nations that have conducted homelessness censuses, we have compiled this ranking of the 10 European countries with the highest homelessness rates. We want to dedicate this video to all these people who often live alone and forgotten. What struck us is that some European governments don't even conduct studies to know how many homeless people are in their country. And in the final bonus, we will also look at the strange case of the United Kingdom. Welcome to this new video from Amazing Europe. Number 10, Belgium. In the Brussels capital region, the number of homeless people is skyrocketing. In the last 3 years, there has been a 30% increase, and now there are more than 7,000 people sleeping on the streets or staying in temporary shelters. But in Belgium, the problem of homelessness is not limited to densely populated cities. It is estimated that 8% of all counted individuals live in municipalities with fewer than 15,000 inhabitants. About half live in one of the 11 central cities of Flanders, and about 30% live in cities and towns with populations between 15,000 and 50,000. The total number of homeless people is around 29,000, equating to 24.5 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. It is important to note that the censuses conducted in Belgium do not only account for visible homeless people, that is those who sleep on the street or in shelters, but also all those excluded from the housing market. For example, this includes people forced to spend the night with friends or relatives, a phenomenon that more often affects women and young adults. Besides the homeless, there are many people in Belgium living in precarious housing situations. In 2019, 15.7% of the population lived in inadequate housing, while in 2022, more than 257,000 people were on the waiting list for social housing. Number 9, Sweden. More than a third of the homeless in Sweden have children under the age of 18. This means that in Sweden, there are more than 20,000 children with homeless parents. According to the Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare, in 2023, there were about 27,400 homeless people in Sweden. Sweden has the highest homelessness rate among the Scandinavian countries, with 26 people per 10,000 inhabitants. About 43% of the homeless were born in a country other than Sweden. Sweden is facing a severe housing crisis, which is the main cause of difficulties for many parents in finding a home. Many cannot qualify as tenants due to low incomes. The shortage of available and affordable housing, especially in cities, exacerbates the situation. In 2017, 88% of municipalities reported this shortage, due to the fact that new constructions cannot keep up with population growth. The production of new public or rental housing is limited due to high costs of land, labor, and materials. All of this, among other things, increases the waiting time for obtaining a new home. Number 8, Ireland. In Ireland, homelessness statistics only include those who have accessed emergency housing. It's unclear whether those sleeping on the streets are excluded from the count or if there isn't a single homeless person in Ireland who doesn't sleep in emergency housing for at least a few months a year. In any case, in April 2024, around 14,000 homeless people were counted, equivalent to 26.6 people per 10,000 inhabitants. This represents a 14% increase in just the last year. 30% of the homeless in Ireland are children. The total number of families that found themselves in emergency housing in April 2024 was 1,996, 15 more than the previous month. Government officials at that time claimed that their priority was to increase the supply of housing for these people, while humanitarian organizations claimed that the number of homeless people had increased by 61% under the previous government. In recent months, the government has changed, and it remains to be seen if the condition of these people will also change. Number 7, Serbia. According to the 2022 census, there are more than 18,000 homeless people in Serbia. This corresponds to about 27.2 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. In addition, there are 168,000 people at risk of homelessness. One of the main reasons is the sharp rise in rental prices, as well as the increasing cost of living. As we've seen in this video, Serbia is one of the European countries where the cost of living is significantly higher than the average salary. But there have also been laws that have exacerbated the problem. A 1992 law discouraged the government from building and maintaining public housing. In other words, the state stopped providing affordable housing for those in need. Moreover, in 2016, another law made it easier to evict people from their homes. Various humanitarian organizations denounced the indifference of politicians. A recent statement by the mayor of Belgrade made headlines when he commented on the large number of homeless people in the Serbian capital, saying that this is proof that Belgrade has become a metropolis, because the richest cities have a problem with homelessness. Number 6. Germany. It is truly impossible to know how many homeless people there are in Germany. The reason is that different sources report very different numbers, and these are sources from experienced organizations in the field. The Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs report on homelessness states that in 2022, there were just over 260,000 homeless people in Germany. The Federal Statistical Office, on the other hand, claims that there were just over 370,000 homeless people in 2022. That's 110,000 more people than reported by the Ministry of Labor. But it doesn't stop there. The German Statistical Office only counts people registered at shelters. It does not account for those who live permanently on the streets or the so-called hidden homeless, that is, people who stay with friends or relatives after losing their homes. According to a humanitarian organization, there are actually more than 600,000 homeless people in Germany. For this video, we considered the official figures reported by the government, but obviously, we don't know what the truth is. The government states that there are just over 260,000 homeless people in Germany, equivalent to 31.4 people per 10,000 inhabitants. The government has promised to end this problem by 2030 by providing housing for all the homeless. Do you think this is possible? Number 5. Latvia. Latvia has many more homeless people than its neighboring countries. This nation is part of the so-called Baltic Tigers, the three nations that experienced an economic boom from 2000 to 2007. Yet Latvia differs from the other two in terms of the number of homeless people. Lithuania has 14.1 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants, while Estonia has only 8. Latvia, on the other hand, had more than 5,600 homeless people in 2021, which equates to about 32 people per 10,000 inhabitants. If any of you know the reason for this large difference, feel free to write it in the comments. Latvian politicians are less optimistic than the German counterparts, stating that this problem cannot be completely solved. However, they seem committed to ensuring that no one lacks shelter and a hot meal, at least during the winter months. In Riga, the capital of Latvia, there are about 650 homeless people in December. The city is able to offer up to 900 beds. However, there are still some people who refuse to socialize, and of course, these individuals are much more difficult to help. Some have even suggested capturing those who refuse to stay in shelters and locking them up. But members of Riga's city council have stated that this would be an inhumane act, worthy of a totalitarian regime. Number 4. Iceland. In Iceland, homelessness is skyrocketing. Between 2011 and 2021, it increased by 67%. First, let's clarify that the vast majority of the homeless are Icelandic. It should also be noted that the Icelandic Statistical Institute distinguishes between primary and secondary homelessness. The primary homeless are those who sleep on the streets, while the secondary homeless are those who are frequently resettled or are on a waiting list for social housing due to a lack of housing. In recent years, the number of men living on the streets has increased by as much as 87%. In total, 1,272 homeless people were counted in Iceland. This is very few compared to other nations, but considering that this island has fewer than 400,000 inhabitants, Iceland has 34 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. But what is the reason for such a large increase in the number of homeless people? A 2020 study states that the root of the problem lies in the 2008 financial crisis. This crisis led to an increase in housing prices as well as an increase in the cost of living. But the study also states that another serious problem is drug and alcohol addiction. Victims of these two substances are much more likely to end up on the streets. Number 3. Czech Republic. According to a census, in 2022 there were more than 50,000 homeless people in the Czech Republic. 20% of them live on the streets, 6% in emergency shelters, 40% in temporary homeless facilities, and 34% in unconventional housing, such as trailers. This equates to about 44 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. However, if we also count those who live with friends or relatives because they have lost their homes, the number would increase by another 54,000 people, placing the Czech Republic in second place. The country is facing a severe housing crisis, exacerbated by the skyrocketing cost of living. In fact, for over a decade in the Czech Republic, apartment prices have been rising faster than citizens' incomes. While the average household income has increased by 57% between 2022 and 2024, apartment prices have risen by 144%. Associations trying to help these people are increasing, but the arrival of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian refugees has put a strain on social services and sparked tensions in some facilities. In some day centers, residents do not like hearing the Ukrainian or Russian language, as they fear that the new arrivals may take their place. Number 2, France. Thousands of homeless people have been removed from Paris and sent to other parts of France because of the Olympics. A French humanitarian worker stated, "We call it social cleansing. It's no proper solution for the people to just be pushed away, so we make room for the beautiful Paris postcard." The government denies that this relocation has anything to do with the Olympics, but the mayor of Orléans seems to think otherwise. He revealed that people are brought to Orléans in temporary housing or hotels. The government claims to want to find them long-term accommodation in Orléans and other cities, but the city's mayor said that the people who brought them to these accommodations told them to leave after 3 weeks. And all this while their shelters are already overcrowded. In 2022, France had 333,000 homeless people, or about 49 people per 10,000 inhabitants. According to some studies, it appears that 59% of them live in emergency shelters, 33% are immigrants living in reception or asylum centers, and 8% live on the streets. The number of homeless people in France has more than doubled in just 10 years. The same studies state that, especially due to rising rents and heating costs, there are about 12 million people in France facing housing insecurity, although their situation is far from as dire as that of the homeless. Before revealing the number 1, if you found this video informative, we kindly invite you to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss our new videos. And when this video reaches 400 likes, we will publish one about the European countries with the fewest homeless people. Thank you very much. Number 1, Slovakia. According to the 2021 Slovak population census, this country has the highest percentage of homeless people in Europe. There are more than 71,000 people, equivalent to 131 homeless per 10,000 inhabitants. 15% of them are under 15 years old. What is most concerning is not just the number of homeless people, but also their increase in recent years. In fact, in 2011 there were just over 23,000. This is an increase of over 200% in just 10 years, although it should be noted that the two censuses used slightly different data collection methodologies. But why do so many people not have a home? According to the non-profit organization World Habitat, it is also because there are few rental properties in Slovakia. Since buying homes is more common than renting in this nation, those who cannot afford to buy a property find themselves with limited affordable rental options. Many humanitarian organizations lament the lack of serious homelessness policies in government programs. According to them, when politicians promise to help the poor, they mainly refer to people who are slightly above the poverty line. At Amazing Europe, we don't know if this is true, but it is certain that, due to rising prices in the last 2 years, more and more retirees and low-income people in Slovakia are turning to homeless charity services to get something to eat, even if they are not homeless themselves. Many of you may have noticed the absence of the United Kingdom in this ranking. According to official government data, there are more than 160,000 homeless people in the United Kingdom. This would place the UK in 11th place, with 24 homeless per 10,000 inhabitants. However, various humanitarian organizations strongly disagree with the numbers provided by the government. First, they point out that the way homelessness is counted in the 3 legal jurisdictions that make up the UK is very different. Then there's the case of England. While government data reports there are 110,000 homeless people, several humanitarian organizations agree that the number actually exceeds 300,000. Of these, about 45% are minors. Obviously, the figures include all types of homelessness, not just those who sleep on the streets. Regarding the latter, they are constantly increasing. In London alone, they have increased by a fifth in just 1 year. In the United Kingdom, the average age of death for those who live on the streets is 46 for men and 42 for women, partly because they are almost 17 times more likely to be victims of violence. Many homeless people in Europe are immigrants, some of whom are illegal. To get a more complete picture of the situation, we recommend our video on the 10 European countries with the most illegal immigrants. You can find it in the top right corner. That's it for this video. See you next time.